あいいわ。それならもう一つ質問に答えてもらえる？ドクター・ノヴァという名前に聞き覚えは？
Dr. Nova? Really? That would make his daughter Neo Nova. No wonder she has issues. Hello and welcome to another Dig Delight Direct Drive DJ video. Today we are taking a look at the cool and calculating leader and vocalist of Abyssmare, Neo Nova. Neo begins her journey as an antagonist to the primary D4DJ cast. But as I have already gone over with the Veronica discourse, this was only meant to be a temporary status. This means Neo would be incorporated into the main cast at a later point in the overall narrative. However, it would also be jarring to have a primary antagonist suddenly be all buddy-buddy with everybody, so Neo was written to have personality barriers that would make this difficult. These barriers stem from Neo's inability to emotionally connect with others, which is easy for Japanese writers to incorporate into an all-American girl like Neo by giving her massive daddy issues. What? I need a new joke? Too bad. It's my video. Deal with it. Daddy issues 2. Electric Digaloo. When Neo was introduced inside Nova, she is immediately portrayed as being aloof and disinterested in others. A lot of Abyssmare's early dialogue in the story is mostly Elsie and Veronica running their mouths at each other and Sophia's paranoid panicking. While Neo is a woman of few words, getting straight to the point and quick to disengage in conversation. This makes her cold and calculating in those interactions, which is hilariously ironic because she behaves just like the two father figures in Neo's life up to this point. Before I talk about Neo's biological father, I want to cover the relationship Neo has with her surrogate father figure, Mitsuhashi Sho. Where do I even begin with this guy? He started as a DJ with several of his friends decades prior to the story. He left his friends to try and create great music to surpass them by being a music producer for the greatest singer in the world. He meets a woman named Aria who becomes a singing legend under his tutelage. In the process of doing all this, he abandoned his own wife and son, which resulted in his wife dying and his son growing a massive hatred for him. The singing sensation Aria also dies, leaving a young daughter alone in the world. Instead of returning to his son after the death of Aria, Sho keeps searching for new talent to produce the greatest singer in the world, and 3 years prior to Sai Nova, meets a girl named Neo, who happens to be the daughter of Sho's previous talent, and now is her music producer. Seeing as this guy walked out on his own son, you can imagine how well he's going to do raising someone else's daughter. Just before Abyssmare makes their big performance in D4 Fest America, Sho decides to have a little pep talk with Neo. As they are watching the Unicord performance, he brings up the fact that Lumina's singing is extremely similar to the singing legend Aria. This sends Neo into a panic as she's drawn into her past. Sho is often criticized for this behavior, but at the same time it is very in character of him to be obsessively professional in his interactions with Neo. His so-called plan was to have Neo feel cornered with paranoia, and then have Neo weaponize her anxiety to topple Lumina. However, Sho made a massive miscalculation. Sho treated this interaction the same way he treated every past interaction with Neo. Normally this would work, as if one looks closely, Sho and Neo are actually similar in that they are cold and calculating, and they even admit later in the story that they simply used each other and viewed their relationship as solely a business one. With that said, it is easy to forget that underneath the cool exterior, Neo is 16 years old. Despite being a young professional singer, Neo is still a teenager, and as much as one protests, she is a kid that needs a strong emotional role model. When she starts panicking, Sho was convinced that he had trained her adequately in the music industry. But the fact of the matter was that Neo didn't need a drill sergeant. She needs a father figure to give emotional support. This exchange wounds Neo deeply, as the rest of Side Nova has her tie her fear of Lumina to Sho, believing her actions to be connected to him. Neo develops a strong hatred for Sho to the point that she emancipates herself from him relationally, and when she learns that returning to America would obligate her to work for him again, she would rather put up with the rest of the D4DJ cast than deal with him again. In hindsight, it is easy to judge Sho's awful behavior and wonder why Neo even went along with working with him. The fact of the matter is that Neo was drawn to him because of a sense of familiarity, as he behaved very much like her biological father. In Side Nova Episode 8, where the audience is shown the full conversation between Neo and Sho, he will say certain things like comparing Neo to Arya and asking her, "Why do you sing?" which triggers memories of her birth father. When given insight into Neo's past, the audience learns that Neo's father was also like a drill sergeant, constantly pushing Neo in her singing to rise up to a level to match her mother. Neo's fathers were men that were stuck in the past and were so focused on reviving Arya that they neglected Neo and her feelings. As the father figures in her life caused her so much pain, Neo only associates the past with that pain, and thus every time she has to remember it, she is filled with anger, hatred, and fear. The audience learns that at the age of 11, Neo watched as her father walked out on her after realizing that she couldn't sing like Arya. It is easy to judge him, as no 11-year-old should ever have to experience abandonment from a parent. Neo is taken care of by her grandparents, who allowed her to live her life any way she wanted, including giving her the option to give up on singing. However, the damage was already done, as Neo didn't know any other life other than singing. She continued to sing in order to find connection to the father she wanted so badly to return. Even when Neo falls into depression in Side Nova 7, she uses singing to surpass her mother as an unhealthy coping mechanism. When questioning herself why she sings, it feels jarring, as Neo was already given an answer to that question. The dark reality that Neo does not have an identity outside of her father. Despite Neo's hatred for her father, when looking at her personality, she behaves just like him. They are both pragmatists who care more for function rather than understanding. During the climax of Side Nova, Unicorn's Ichihashi Lumina brings up the question that puts Neo into a panic. Why do you sing? Neo scoffs at Lumina's idea of singing because it's fun, and thinks that emotions is a waste, because it cannot make you the best singer in the world. Neo and her father only saw things for their function and use, giving little care and less emotional connection to their reasons for doing things. This is why they are so cold to others. Jumping forward to the transmitted heat, the heart at 100.4 degrees story. While the rest of Abyssmare is feeling hot from a fever, Neo is still cold to them emotionally. Neo acknowledges that despite doing her best to care for them, she feels as if she lacks something. She phones up Lumina, who points out that Neo may have cared for them physically, but did little to care for them emotionally. Lumina evaluates Neo further by mentioning that Neo knows basically nothing about the personal interest of her fellow Abyssmare members. The short of it is that Neo is terrible when it comes to having emotional connections with others, because just like her father, she never thought that there was any point to it. Coming back to Side Nova, Neo tells Lumina that it is best to be cold to others because people are merely tools to reach an end goal. As stated before, Neo's father saw her as a means to revive Arya's singing voice. She is just like him in that she viewed the rest of Abyssmare the same way he did, the means to an end. But just like her managers show, Neo makes a huge miscalculation. She is an artist, not a scientist, and that cold, calculated view of art is challenged by Lumina when asked, "Why do you sing?" Neo comes to the revelation that she really is like her old man, stuck to the past, clinging onto something that is long since gone. While for her father, it was to revive Arya, for Neo, it was to make her father happy. When she comes to the realization that she could never have her father's approval, Neo's breakdown comes to a climax. When Neo realized that she tied her identity to her father's vision and approval, and more importantly, how distant that goal was, she saw how empty she really was. One of the most important things a person needs is for someone to believe in them. Someone to tell them that they are proud of them and that their dreams are worth pursuing. An important reason why having a father figure is so important is that the role of a father is to be the earliest person in one's life to provide that faith and confidence in a child. The words, "I believe in you," is what will carry a person through the toughest of times. These are not the words that Neo had growing up, and that is why she's so damaged as a teenager. Neo was never told by her father that he believed in her, only that she had to be someone else, to which there is no pride in. No one believed in her, and that is why Neo felt as if she had no one in her life. The final straw was that she adopted that philosophy into every interaction, and when faced with how much of a failure she was, Neo was prepared to take her own life. However, the story does not end there, because the reality is that Neo does indeed have one father figure that does believe in her. What is revealed in Side Nova is not only the fact that Lumina is an artificial intelligence, but her creator happens to be Neo's father. Lumina was created with this revelation that since not even with Arya's blood in Neo's veins, no human being would be able to replicate Arya's singing. Like the postmodernist he is, he figures he can just use AI to recreate Arya, which to his credit, he does achieve. After accomplishing this, he realized that it was never about recreating Arya's talent. He also realizes that he royally screwed up when it came to raising his daughter, so he reprogrammed Lumina with a different directive: to find Neo and be the father figure that he failed to be. There is a whole dynamic of Lumina acting as Neo's older sister, as well as being her mother, having inherited Arya's spirit. But based on her programming and their interaction inside Nova, Lumina is also Neo's father. When Lumina approaches Neo during their head-to-head live show at Yoba Academy, she asks, "Why do you sing?" At this point of the story, these words are triggering to Neo, as she associates them with both show and her birth father. However, when Lumina asks this, she is asking out of a place of understanding and empathy. She is quick to answer her own question, which may seem strange, as Lumina should have waited for Neo to give an answer first. I propose that Lumina switched from the pre-programmed father figure to her Arya persona to reveal to Neo that she cannot become Arya despite her own programming. At first glance, it appears that Neo is about to have an awful third father figure, but Lumina is doing something to help Neo get out of her traumatic slump. When Abyssmare asks what Lumina is doing in pursuing Neo, she responds with, "I am here to save Neo." The interesting twist is that Lumina is using the same means as Neo's other father figures, but instead of forcing Neo to be someone she is not, she is forcing Neo to become her own person. By taking the identity of Arya for herself, Lumina is releasing Neo from the burden of becoming her parents. This, however, is what makes Neo feel empty, and while at first it is viewed as negative, as the feeling of emptiness is equated to meaninglessness, it is also the opportunity for Neo to find a new life for herself.
空っぽだ。ずっと目を背けていたんだ。世界一の歌姫になる。そのためだけにひた走ってきた。しかしそれは父から刷り込まれた空虚な目標だった。ひたすら技術を磨いてきた。自分にはそれしかないのだからそう言い聞かせて。なのにどれだけやっても私は歌姫アリアに一星ルミナ、お前にもかなわない。私のやってきたことに意味などなかった。私にはもう何も残っていないんだ。こんな私など死んでしまえば。ソフィア、今何を？
ネオ様には私たちがいるじゃないですか。
Since D4DJ exists in a cute girl anime world, it is up to the power of friendship to complete the work Lumina started. It is only after Sophia slaps some sense into Neo does she begin to realize that there is more to live for and finds a new purpose: to sing for Abyssmare. This works because if Lumina did everything for Neo, then she would just be another drill sergeant, no different from Sho, or even worse, the person their father was. Lumina not going full dad mode on Neo also allows the latter to begin her journey to healing from her daddy issues. Side Nova ends with Neo having a new conviction to sing for her own purposes and reorienting her becoming the best singer in the world mantra as her own. This does feel a bit weird, as her goal does not actually change, but rather she thinks she is liberated from her father's programming. Little does Neo know, being free from her father is not going to be easy, as Lumina is not far behind, insisting that she will always have a connection to her family and that her daddy issues don't fade away in one anime episode. Realistically, Neo's recovery would not be instant, as there are layers to peel in her psychological damage, resulting in her inability to connect to others. Not to worry though, it's not like the D4DJ writers were going to use a second volume of storytelling to expand on this Nova family dynamic. Oh wait, is that why Volume 3 was called Side Nova? This whole thing was a sideshow just to introduce the family members? Then what is the actual Nova story? Oh, No.